Today we're going to be learning Chagigah Daf Kaf Gimel. Chodesh Tov to everyone, and Shabbat Shalom. This month's Shiurim are dedicated by Joshua and Judy Schwartz in honor of his beloved mother, Bernice Cohen Schwartz's 99th birthday. As a teenager, Bernice wanted to study Talmud like the boys, but her grandfather said it wasn't for girls. Thanks to Hadran, now it is. This month's Shiurim are dedicated by Rabbi Perkins in honor and memory of Rabbi Dr. Samuel T. Lax. Dr. Lax taught rabbinics at Gretz College in Philadelphia and at several other colleges and universities, where he was professor and chair of the Department of History of Religion. A scholar who studied the rabbinic background to Christian texts, he inspired me and many others with his erudition and his commitment to the use of critical methodologies and interpretations of Talmudic texts. Today's daf is sponsored by Abby Flamholtz in honor of her daughter-in-law, Sigal Spitzer Flamholtz's birthday. She is an inspiration balancing motherhood work and her learning b'li'ayin hara. And today's daf is sponsored by Leah Goldford in loving memory of her father, Mo Foreman, Zichrono Livracha, Moshe Ben Meir, and the completion of his shlosh. He had a huge zest for life, filling every moment with laughter and activity. He was a fearless adventurer traveling to China and South America when he was 95 and joining his family trips from Mexico and Alaska. He was committed to consistency in his long life and had a policy of never gossiping. These qualities and many more were passed down to me, his grandchildren and great-grandchildren, who were blessed to be able to live with him for the last number of years. We miss him very much and can't quite believe he's gone. I'm sure that he would be proud of all the Torah learning going on in his merit and of my dedication to Daf Yomi. We love you all, Dad. Okay, we're going to get started on our daf right now. Before we get started, quick announcements. Again, the Siyum is going to take place on Tuesday. That means, by the way, there's no regular class on Tuesday morning. The daf that day will be learned Tuesday evening and will go up on the site after. Okay, the Siyum will all be up on the website, so you can view everything there. And if you still haven't joined the tapestry, please do. You'll get to see a sneak preview of some of it at the Siyum. It's very, very exciting project, and I really hope you all take part and help be part of this historical moment of thousands of women finishing Seder Moed, the first end of two plus years of learning. And for those who have been learning for a long time, this is just a great moment and a great way to record it all in history. Okay, Hanosei, all the details, by the way, there's a tab on the menu that's called Learner's Tapestry. You can find it and get to it easily there. We're starting on the bottom of Kaf Bet Amud Bet. We're going to go through more cases in the Mishnah and explain them. Nosei tamidras means you're carrying something that a zav or a zavar, or one of those people stepped on or sat on. Okay, so here, just as an example, I have a scarf here. Okay, imagine somebody sat on this who is a mida. I'm carrying it. Now, while I'm carrying it, okay, I could be carrying it actually by touching it. It could be on a tray and, I'm not actually touching it, but it's kind of up there in the air, okay, but I'm moving it. Usually, this is called an av hatuma. That would make me a rishon, the tuma, okay? So that means that I carry on tuma at the status of a rishon, which means that I can't move on impurity other than to food and drink, not to vessels or anything else. If in my other hand, now, there's a special unique halacha by Midrash. While I'm carrying this, though, there's a special stringency that not only am I a rishon, but while it's in my hand, I can pass on impurity to utensils, okay? Even though normally I'm a rishon and I can't in this case, while it's in my hand, I have a unique status. However, there's a unique halacha by earthenware vessels that I can't pass it on to earthenware vessels, okay? So, imagine I'm holding in my hand at the same time an earthenware vessel. So if it were a metal vessel, utensil, I would basically make it impure. Okay, so again, in my left hand, I have my scarf. In my right hand, I have a cup of coffee in an earthenware vessel. Okay, my coffee, let's not say coffee. Let's say it's a bowl or a cup with wine inside that's truma wine. Okay, so, or I have sacrificial meat in it, let's say. So if in my earthenware vessel is truma or kodesh, truma, I'm not going to be able to pass on impurity because that's the regular laws. It doesn't go through there. But if it's kodesh, sacrificial items, it will pass on impurity. So now we have to figure out why. So kodesh my time malo. Why am I not allowed to be holding kodesh at the same time? It's because of this case that happened. What's this case? He was passing a barrel of wine with sacrificial wine. It was dedicated to the temple, and he's moving it from place to place. Okay, so that's moving it. Okay, where he's not touching directly, right? That's why I have the cup here. If I was directly touching the truma, it would be a problem, but I'm not, because I'm a rishon, because I'm holding this. I'm a rishon. I touch the truma directly, it's a problem. But in this case, it's in a vessel. So, and it's in an earthenware vessel, which doesn't pass on the impurity. What happened while I was carrying this barrel? So right now, I don't even have midras in my hand. I was carrying this barrel of wine, of kodesh, no problem. My sandal, the strap on my sandal broke. And I picked it up, nitala, v'hinichal pichavit, and I put it on top of the barrel. So here's my barrel, and I stick, right, the ritzuah. Okay, imagine this is my ritzuah. I stick it on top of the barrel. But it's not like my spoon here, okay, that I'm showing you. But what happened? It's a strap. Nafla avir chavit. Oh, whoops. The midras itself fell. Okay, you have to understand, I forgot to tell you this. The strap had been on the feet of someone who was a zav or a zava or one of those people, and things that they step on becomes tameh. It's like moshav, things they sit on or things they step on. So that strap fell into the airspace. Now, before we were talking about, I was touching the outside of the kli, and it doesn't affect what's inside. But if it falls into the airspace of the utensil, it's going to make it impure. So it made the entire wine that was sanctified impure. V'nitmeit, right, and it became impure. At that moment, they said, they said, from now on, anyone who's carrying midras is going to pass on, right, nosei truma can carry truma of alot kodesh, but not kodesh, because of what happened with that case of yen kodesh. So they say, I don't get it though. Ihachi truma nami should be a problem for truma as well. This seems to be the question we keep asking with all these cases. So they say, no, Ha'amani Rabbi Chananya ben Akavi. It goes according to Rabbi Chananya ben Akavi's approach, who says, Lo asru ela b'yarden u'b'sfina u'k'maseh shaya. Okay, we're not supposed to understand this yet, but he says they didn't forbid it only on a boat and in the Jordan, and like the case that happened. Obviously talking about some other case. But the point is, and we'll see this soon, which is that Rabbi Chananya basically had a different case where they instituted something because of some case that happened. And according to him, you only do it when all the details are the same, basically. So in this case, we'd say, according to Rabbi Chananya ben Akavia, we'll see not everyone agrees. It has to be, the details have to be similar. And that's why they only said it on Kodesh and not on Truma, because it was just like the case that happened, where it was actually sacrificial items and not Truma. Maihi, what's this case? Titania says in the Braita, Lo yisa adam mechatat ve'efer chatat ve'avirein be'yardenu b'sfina. Okay, so according to Tanakama, this is the broader, which is, we're going to make it the Gzeira in many, many, many cases. So you can't carry mechatat and the efer of chatat and carry them in the Yarden and the Sfina, in the boat, and the Jordan. You can't throw it across a river. Lo yishitem, we're talking about the waters for the paraduma or the ashes from the red heifer, right? That's the paraduma, the red heifer. V'lo yishitem al pnei hamayim, you can't put them in something that's going to float in the water to the other side. V'lo yirkav al gabei behema, you can't even put them on an animal. V'lo al gabei chavero, not on your friend's back. V'elen kenu raglav nogot bekarka. In other words, let's say if someone's on a piggyback ride, you can't put it on their back. You has to be on someone who's grounded in the ground, on feet on the ground. You could put it in a bridge and you don't have to worry. Okay, you can cross over a bridge because you're walking on land, basically. Not land exactly, but you're walking on ground. It doesn't matter the Jordan, doesn't matter any river, anything. Rabbi Chananya ben Akavia omer, lo asru ela b'yardin u'b'sfina u'k'ma shaya. Rabbi Chananya ben Akavia says, no, it's only in the Jordan and only in a boat and only in something that's very similar to that case. So the Gemara says, my Maaseh Shaya, what was this curious case, right? Obviously, that was the case. He was going over the Jordan and he was in a boat. What happened? Well, he was taking with him, he had in the boat with him paraduma waters and the mechata and the ashes. Turns out there was a kezayit of a dead body in the boat, in the bottom of the boat. The boat was covered, so everything inside Tumat Ohel. At that moment they said, one cannot carry these things in a boat because of what happened. So again, you have the two approaches, which is Rabbi Hananya ben Akabi, who said only with the exact details, and that matches our Mishnah, as opposed to Tanakama, said, no, we do it across the board. So now they ask a few questions. We're not actually going to have answers to most of them. Sandal tameh, sandal tahor mahu. So we understand sandal tameh, an impure sandal, but what if it was a tahor one? It wasn't midras. Maybe we don't allow you to carry at the same time you're carrying something else because maybe you'll come to end up with a tameh one, with one that was midras. Do we have to go that far? Chavit ptucha, chavit stumama. We understand if the barrel was open. What if you're carrying a barrel that's closed? It's not such a concern. It's going to fall in, but maybe we don't allow the closed one. Maybe you'll come to actually carry an open one at the same time you're carrying midras. We don't have an answer to either of those two questions, but the third one we'll have an answer to, although a confusing answer. Avar v'nasama. This is a gzera. They said, don't do this just in case. What if I did it? What if I carried my midras in one hand, I carried my barrel in the other hand, and I didn't accidentally have the midras fall inside? So is it okay? Or do we say, no, the gzera was you can't do this, and if you do it, it's going to become considered impure. So Rabbi Ila Amal, Imafar v'nasa, tameh, it's actually, you can't do it, and it's going to be impure. Rabbi Zera Amar, Avar v'nasa tahor. No, it's pure. Okay, there's no issue. It's not a problem. So we end up with not really a clear-cut answer. We just have two different people who answer the question. Kelim hanigmerim b'tahara. If you have kelim that are finished b'tahara, that means they were pure. One, from the moment you watched from impurity, from the moment that they became susceptible to impurity, they became the size of 3 by 3. So comes the Gemara and says, Digamrin human, who finished making this kli? Like, what exactly is the situation here? So they say, if it's a person who's careful about halacha, lama lehu tefillah, what do you need tefillah for? Because it was all tahor all along. The chaver is dealing with it now, and he's careful about tahara. Why would you need to put in a mikvah? Ela digamrinu amaaretz. Well, if you say an amaaretz finished it, who's not trustworthy when it comes to tumah, and the rabbi said anything an amaaretz deals with is tameh. Well, then nigmarin b'tahara karilu. They wouldn't call it. It was finished in purity because it was made by an amaaretz. Of course, it's finished and it's impure, not pure. So it really doesn't make sense why we need to put this in a mikvah. Really, a person who's careful about impurity laws finished it. So what's the issue? And this goes back to something we saw a few days ago. It's because of the rok of an amaaretz. We're worried about the saliva of an amaaretz, who potentially, I didn't 100% understand if every amaaretz is considered potential zav, because if they became a zav, maybe they never came out of the process. Or maybe it means a zav who is an amaaretz who wouldn't be so careful. Either which way, okay, so we're worried about the rok of an amaaretz. Now, when did that saliva get in there? If it's before it was finished, what does it matter? It wasn't a kli. It wasn't susceptible to impurity. The saliva shouldn't matter. But if it's after they finish, we already said it was nigmirim b'tahara, and the chaver is in charge of it. He's obviously going to watch and make sure nothing gets in contact with it. So again, what on earth is the case? So now they say, no, it must be the saliva got on there before he finished it, because once he finished it, he was careful with it. But what's the issue? If the saliva got on there before, we saw this with the woman who tied it with her teeth, right? And then she tied it in her mouth, and then she had saliva on it once it became a baguette. That was a few days ago. So same thing here. If it's still wet and moist when it becomes the size of 3 by 3 fingers breaths, then the saliva will actually still be able to be mitameh. It doesn't have to come directly out of his mouth at that point. It could have come out earlier, and then it was washed b'tahara, but we still have to tovel it because maybe there was saliva there from someone from before. So now they say tefillah in harev shemesh lo. According to this, it says you have to put it in the mikvah, but it doesn't say you have to wait for sunset. This utensil, right? The kli that's nigmar b'tahara. You just finish creating it, and you put it in the mikvah, and it's ready to go. It doesn't say you have to wait for sunset, which normally a person tovels, even a kli, you often have to wait for sunset, or maybe you do, maybe you don't. That's going to be part of our question here. So matnit in deloka Rabbi Eliezer, the Mishnah must not go like Rabbi Eliezer. Why? Titnan, it says in the Mishnah. Right now, we're going to go into para aduma. Okay, well, I'm going to give you some background about paraduma, red heifer. The Kohen who burns the red heifer, it says here, okay, Rashi quotes it. I'm going to look at Rashi. It says you need an ish tahor, okay, a pure person, which means it can't be impure. And then it says v'hiza tahor ala tameh, okay, the one who sprinkles it. It's not just the one who burns. The one who sprinkles it is called the tahor. Now, it doesn't really need to say that because we already know he's tahor. So the Gemara, the drasha on this, not the Gemara, but the Braita says on this, and Rashi quotes it in the Hotzimi Liban Shel Tzdukim, and a few lines down in Rashi there, tahor michlal shehu tameh. The fact that they call him tahor when they didn't really need to, because they already said he was tahor, he was pure. From there, you can infer that he's tahor, but he's also somewhat tameh. Okay? We'll see what that means in a minute. Limen al tful yom shekasher b'para. From there, the rabbis learned that a tful yom, meaning one who went to the mikveh in the morning and didn't yet wait for the sunset, which is similar to what we were talking about, the utensils, is able to deal, he can be a Kohen in that status, can do the paraduma. The Tzdukim, remember the Sadducees, they disagree with this halacha. They said, no, it says tahor, we understand it literally. He has to be fully tahor. Because this was a big argument between the Tzdukim and the Prushim, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, the Pharisees, the Prushim said, you know what? We're going to insist that every time the Kohen does it, we're going to, in front of everyone, throw a sheretz on him or something, make him tameh. He's going to purify himself. And then he's not going to wait for the nighttime and he's going to already do the work. And that's going to prove that we're going by our law and not by their law. Because it's the kind of thing, so you didn't get a tful yom, you didn't get a tful yom. Okay, so what? They wanted it to always be a tful yom. Okay, that's background that you need for this halacha to understand. And the second thing you need to know about this, which we'll see later in today's daf, which is as a result of that, since they used a tful yom who was a pseudo tameh, he's not fully tahor, right? He still has to wait for nighttime to be fully tahor. For example, he can't eat truma, and yet he's dealing with the paraduma. So people might have been negligent and said, oh, we don't have to treat paraduma so seriously. But you did. So as a reaction, because the rabbis were always insisting it be a tful yom who does this, they therefore had to be stringent in many other areas, and they instituted a whole series of stringencies by paraduma. We saw this in the Mishnah. The paraduma is on the highest level of tahara, because they wanted everyone to know that no, we treat this very seriously. It's just that we think a tful yom can do it. It's a unique halacha, but it's not that we don't treat it seriously. So that's our background to what we're going to learn. Ditnan. So now we want to show that our Mishnah seems to not be like Rabbi Eliezer. In the end, we're going to prove it is. Okay, but our Mishnah seems to say you don't need harev shemesh by utensils. Ditnan. If you take a reed and you cut it from the ground and you turn it into a tube that you're going to use for the chataf, for preparing the paraduma waters. Rabbi Eliezer omer yitbol miyad. He says, put in the mikveh immediately. As soon as you cut it, put in the mikveh. We're going to get to the same question as to, this is very similar to our case. You create the utensil and then you have to tovel it for what reason? Rabbi Yoshua omer yitameh v'achar kach yitbol. First, like the Kohen, make it impure and then put it in a mikveh. So again, we don't yet understand too much. We're going to try to figure it out. The Gemara is going to ask. So the first question is, who cut it? So again, is it an ama aretz or a chaver? Lema Rabbi Yoshua. Sorry, I missed something. If you're going to say it was a chaver who's careful about laws of impurity, lama li tefillah. Well, then why? If he's careful about laws of impurity, you don't need to dunk the utensil. Ela or immersive. Ela dechatcha ama aretz. Must be if it's an ama aretz though. Lema Rabbi Yoshua yitameh v'yitbol. Doesn't make sense. Rabbi Yoshua then. Why would he say make it impure and then dunk it in the mikveh? If it was managed by an ama aretz, all utensils of ama aretz are tameh. So it's already tameh. So Amar Rav Bar Shila, Amar Rav Matna, Amar Shmuel, same person for before, same answer as before. Le'olam techatacha chaver umishum tzinur ama aretz. Again, it was cut by a chaver. So he's watching it from impurity, but maybe there was saliva of an ama aretz. So again, they're going to say, denaf alema, when did the saliva get there? If it's before he cut it, halav manu, it wasn't a kli. Ela batar dechatcha misar zarbe. Once he cut it already, well, he's careful about it. So right? It was before he cut it, and the concern is that maybe once he cuts it, though, the saliva is still there, and he wouldn't have known that it was saliva on it, and it will be impure. So that's our concern. Okay, that didn't yet have to do with what we need. That was just the background. So now, Bishlam ala Rabbi Yoshua. This all makes sense according to Rabbi Yoshua. And that's now, knowing that this is it. there's maybe saliva from before. And then he cuts it, and maybe it's impure from that. So we understand Rabbi Yoshua. Hainu de'ika hekera l'tzdukim. Now, according to Rabbi Yoshua, who says that you need to impurify it in front of everybody, make it impure. It's not like just a concern, maybe it is. You have to make it impure, put it in a mikveh, and then show everybody that it's a tful yom, because we want to show not only can the kohen be a tful yom, also the utensil can be used a tful yom utensil. They said, no, it can only be with people and utensils that are fully pure, that have waited till sunset. We still need to find some heker of the tzdukim. So now, right, because remember, it said, right. No, it didn't actually say about the tzdukim, but we're assuming it has to do with that. So now, according to Rabbi Eliezer, where's the heker for the tzdukim? So now we have to say this. So bishlama, if you need harev shemesh, if all utensils generally need harev shemesh, and this one, you tovel and you don't wait for harev shemesh, then it's very obvious that that's the heker that's tzdukim. So now again, because we're worried there was saliva on it, so it was theoretically impure. And therefore, you put in the mikveh and it's fine right away. And then Rabbi Eliezer would not hold our Mishnah. Our Mishnah holds you don't have to, when you have a new kli that was just created, even if you're worried about the zav, maybe saliva of a zav was there, it's just a chumrah. And what did we say though? You tovel it and you don't need harev shemesh. So here the paradum is treated the exact same as everything else, in which case it's not unique in any way. Ela iyamar lo b'yinan harev shemesh, right? But if you don't need it, my heker l'tzdukim. If you don't need harev shemesh in our case, well, then you don't need it here. And then there's no heker. Then you're just doing things normally, in which case Rabbi Eliezer has a problem. So therefore, it must be that Rabbi Eliezer holds that all kelim need harev shemesh and disagrees with our Mishnah, or our Mishnah disagrees with him. So Amalav, turning out Amabet, Asa'ua ketmei sheretz. Okay, let's go back. Our Mishnah said that it's a problem for this kli that we're worried about, maybe Azav had his saliva on it when it was finished, right? Even though it was finished b'tahara, maybe the saliva was there and it's still wet. That's a chumrah, and we're going to treat it like a shlishi, right? That utensil is a shlishi because all it does is pass on impurity to a revi, and that's it, to kodesh. That's it. Doesn't mess up truma, so it's not a sheni. It's a shlishi. This case, now a shlishi, you could say maybe it doesn't need harev shemesh because it's already so far removed, a third degree impurity. But when we go back and we talk about the paraduma case, there they treated it like a sheretz. So now, if they treat it like a sheretz, what does that mean? Sheretz is avatuma. It makes the kli tameh. The kli is a rishon. So we treat it like a rishon, in which case, right? Remember, a rishon can't pass on impurity to people or utensils, just to food. But now we have a distinction. That's a rishon. Ours is a shlishi. That really needs harev shemesh. Any utensils that are rishons need harev shemesh. They need to wait till nighttime. Our case didn't need to in any case because, right, you could tovel it right away because it's a shlishi. So then we're comparing apples and oranges, and we don't have to say that Rabbi Eliezer doesn't match our Mishnah. But they have a bit of a problem. You're going to say it's a rishon. Wait a minute. Well, then we just said first degree impurity doesn't pass on second degree impurity to a human, just to food and drink. Alamatanya. And why does it say that? The one who cuts the reed and the one who puts it in the mikvah, ta'un tefillah. They need tefillah. They become impure by touching it. That means that the item is not a rishon. It would have to be an avatuma to be able to pass on impurity to a person. So that answer doesn't jive, although it's still going to be more strict than the third degree, but we're still just trying to figure out what kind of impurity does it have. They made it like someone who came in contact with a dead person. Someone who comes in contact with a dead person is an avatuma. So that's how we get that this reed is an avatuma, this tube that we have now. But wait, if it's like a person who came in contact with a dead person, that's a 7-day purification process. You need sprinkling of the paraduma waters on day 3 and 7. That's not what it said here. It said put in the mikveh and you're done and you use it. So we would need sprinkling on the 3rd and the 7th day. And alamatanya, why does it say which sounds like tefillah, and it just needs immersing in the mikveh? It doesn't need sprinkling on the 3rd day and the 7th day. What it means is they created this unique halacha that we're going to treat this reed as if, because we're using it for paraduma, and again, this is all these stringencies they added for paraduma, as if it's like someone that was matame l'me'et on their day number 7, right? In other words, not that they became impure, that they became impure to a dead person, and they're now on their 7th day, meaning all they need to do is go to the mikveh and they're done. So again, they're tful yom, they have to wait till sunset. But again, for these purposes, you don't have to wait. That was the whole idea, because the unique law by paraduma. So they say, wait a minute. They said, no. There's all these stringencies in paraduma, but nothing was some new creation. Everything was connected to something that existed already. There's no such thing as becoming tameh as someone who is impure to a dead body on day number 7. That's not what happens. You become impure and then you have a 7-day process. You can't become like a person who is tameh on day number 7. That's a unique halacha. So that can't be. Well, it can be, because Amar Abaye, when they said lo chichu davar b'para, shelo amru, what they meant was this kind of thing, not that kind of thing. Let's see what the difference is. Kardom mitameh moshav. Moshav is like midras, right? It's like something that you sit on, or midras is something you step on, which is a unique halacha by Zav, and it only applies to things you normally sit on. You can't take a spade and make it into tumat moshav. You can't say, oh, I use the spade for sitting on, so because of that, it's moshav. No, that doesn't work. And that's what they mean. To say by paraduma, if someone sat on a spade, we're going to say that is now carrying this impurity that's going to mess up our paraduma, because that's something that just doesn't exist. Someone on day number 7 of tumat made, of becoming impure to a dead person, exists. It's true, you don't start your tumat there, but that is something that exists. Spade, that's tumat moshav, doesn't exist at all. Now, how do we know this? Because we're going to see. Keditanya, it says in the Braita. Vayoshev. Okay, here's the pasuk by in Vayikra, chapter 15, pasuk 6. Hayoshev al hakli asher yeshev alav azav. Someone who sits on the vessel that sat on it azav. Okay, and then we're going to talk about his impurity. So now they say Hayoshev al hakli yachol kafas se'ah v'yashav aleh tirkav v'yashav aleh. You could be you took a se'ah or a tirkav. Those are measuring cups. Measuring cup that's the size of a se'ah, and the measuring cup the size of a tirkav. Those are measurements. And you turned it upside down and you sat on it. Would that be tameh moshav? Right? Let's say you were a nida. Yehei tameh, you would have thought that. Talmud lomar vayoshev al hakli asher yashav alav yitma. It says if you sit on a utensil that he sat on, which comes to teach you, misham yuchad yeshiva yatzazeh shomrim lo amo v'naseh melachtenu. It's only something you normally sit on, and not something that someone will say to you, hey, get off of that because I need it to measure my flour with. Okay, that doesn't count. So from there we learn that those are the unique laws that you can't come up with, but this isn't such a unique law. And in the end, they made him like a tameh mate, in which case this is an avatuma, which means that you can't compare that to a shlishi latuma, which means that Rabbi Eliezer doesn't disagree with our Mishnah. In that case, it didn't need Harev Shemesh, and that was unique because normally it would have, but it doesn't, to show you the new unique paraduma laws that, and it's not the unique ones, but the ones to go against the tzdukim and say it's full yom can do this. And it's unique because it's different from all other utensils that would have been av hatuma or even rishon latuma. But our case is a shlishi latuma, a 3rd degree impurity, which is much less strict, and therefore it doesn't need Harev Shemesh ever, even according to Rabbi Eliezer. Okay. Now moving to the next case of the Mishnah, and we're almost done for today's daf. Hakli mitzaref masha b'tocho lekodesh, aval lo letruma. If I have a utensil, a sanctified vessel, which has in it sanctified items and other all sanctified items, okay, it's got a pile of things, and not different parts are not touching other parts, but one part becomes tameh, everything in there becomes impure. But not for truma, only if it's sanctified items. Minane mili, where do we get this from? Amar Rabbi Chanin Damal kaf achad asara zahav meleach ketubim. These are the gifts that the Nesiim brought to the temple, when to the Mishkan, when they were sanctifying the Mishkan. In the dedication, they brought 1 cup, it says, 1 spoon of, right, full of incense. It was gold. Hakatuv, or a ladle full, really, they say. Hakatuv asa'o lekol shebakaf achat. The fact that it says kaf achat, it just could have said kaf. We brought a spoon. A spoon means 1 spoon. Why did they have to say 1 spoon? So 1 comes to teach you, everything in the spoon or the ladle is considered 1 together. So if part becomes impure, the other does. Now that means it's a Torah law. Mati Rav Kahana. Rav Kahana questions and says, this is not a Torah law. I'll show you why. Hosif Rabbi Akiva quotes a Braita. Rabbi Akiva adds, and Rabbi Chanin is an Emora, so he can't screw with a Braita, with a Tana. He added to the list of things that combine in a kli sharet, in a utensil, in a vessel, to create impurity. If one is impure, all of them are impure, even if they're not touching. Hasolef, aktoref, alavonava, chalim. The fine flour they use for the meal offerings, the ktoret, the incense that they burned on the altar, the levona, the frankincense, which went along with the mincha offering, and also with the showbread, and the gechalim and the coals. If someone who is this tful yom that we've been discussing, who still has impurity on them, touches them, some of them, everything in the utensil is impure. And that's Rabbanan. How do we know it's Rabbanan? Didn't say that, but midikatani reisha, because before that, notice Rabbi Akiva said we added to the list. So what did it say before that? Hey, Rabbi Shimon ben Betera. Rabbi Shimon ben Betera testified al efer chatat shenagat habebe miksato shetimeet kulo, on the ashes of the paraduma, the red heifer, that if you touch some of them, they're all in a vessel. If you touch some, all of them become impure. Bekatane, and then it says Hosif Rabbi Akiva, which sounds like, first of all, he's not getting it from the verse about the Nisim, because he's getting it from the paraduma, which clearly wouldn't be learned out from the Ktoret, the incense, which was in the vessel of the Nisim. That's incense, that's not Efer paraduma. And he says, and we added on to that as if like this is some additional thing. So it sounds like it's rabbinic, yet Rabbi Chanin says it's Torah. How do we resolve this? We'll have to wait till next shiur to see. Start with that tomorrow, and then tomorrow's daf. And wishing everybody a chodesh tov, a Shabbat shalom, and don't forget to register for the Shiur.